And my work looks at the more recent evolution of capoeira in terms of this globalization, professionalization, and also regendering of capoeira. Because again, when I started, there weren't a whole lot of women training, especially in Brazil, and now it's really exploded. You walk into a capoeira class in some places in New York City and you'd think it was a female-dominated art form. But to kind of pick up where TJ left off talking about capoeira in the 19th century, our first historical records of capoeira are from the 19th century Rio de Janeiro. They come in the form of paintings, European travelers who were kind of fascinated with the African elements of Brazilian culture, which a lot of the Brazilians, the Luso, Brazilians did not want to highlight. That was seen as a dilution of this pure kind of lusotropics they wanted to make. And so it was persecuted. And so we have these visual representations and also police records of capoeiras who were arrested for doing capoeira. Not sure exactly what that looked like. It might have been kind of a catch-all term for different aggressive fighting in the street, but as TJ mentioned, a lot of capoeira was primarily practiced among street gangs of young men, slaves for hire who worked on the streets, or emancipated slaves, and they tended to organize in neighborhoods, often around churches, parishes, where they worked on the streets as maybe shoeshine boys or porters, and so it was a kind of street gang, a way to kind of defend their neighborhood, a way to get kind of some kind of social capital, street cred, respect. And so it was persecuted and actually outlawed at the end of the 19th century. And then it almost disappeared from Rio. In the meantime, in Salvador, there was kind of a blossoming of capoeira, and starting in the 30s and 40s, things changed radically in Brazil in terms of racial ideology, where things African had been seen as degenerative, a social threat. By the 1930s, Getúlio Vargas, a populist president who was trying to bring the nation together and to solidify a national identity, picked up on this idea of Brazil as a racial democracy, that there was a melding, a harmonious melding of the African elements, the indigenous elements, and the European elements. And this was actually promoted or written about kind of in a revisionist history by a sociologist, Gilberto Freire, who was actually trained here for a bit with Franz Boas in the anthropology department. So things suddenly, Afro-Brazilian started to be celebrated as part of national culture. This didn't, however, mean that anything changed for those practitioners, right? But there were two very influential mestres in Salvador, Mestre Bimba and Mestre Pastinha, who are considered the titans of capoeira. And their styles were probably more similar than practitioners today would like to think. But over the years, the two styles that they started, they both took advantage of this kind of change in racial ideology and opened capoeira studios. So they were the first to open official capoeira studios where they taught the martial art with a pedagogy. And over the years, there's been kind of a bifurcation of styles. Capoeira Angola, which tends to be the slower, lower to the ground, more ritualistic, more theatrical. It was what TJ and I demonstrated in the beginning, just a very little bit of it. Usually Angola games can go on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. A roda, Angola roda, can go on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. I just hosted a mestre and at Duke who told me he once had a roda that went on for the entire night. And then Capoeira Regional, which started to incorporate other elements of martial arts. It tends to be faster. It has a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of acrobatics. And that has, both those styles have kind of become more and more distinct, again, than what probably Mestre Pastinha and Bimba were actually playing in the 1930s, so that you can almost think it sometimes that they're different art forms, except the unifying music and the way they're performed in the circle.